Sutton. I think Franklin, he made the tidbits today.
Kroll, $2,700.
Yeah.
Who's going to catch the touchdowns? Kroll.
Yeah, you like your guy. I think that's a horrible play.
No, a great play.
He's never crossing anything. Like he's 27.
He's got to cross the goal line for touchdowns.
Yeah, maybe.
Mayo experience.
Mayo experience. Mayo experience. Mayo experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, presented by Underdog, Week 8. DFS, picks. You smash the like while you're here in Tambo. If you sub to Mayo Media Network right now on YouTube, you get into a draw for $500, and that winner is announced next week.
And what can we do with that money?
Win.
Put it into.
More.
I saw a new one and done.
Oh, yeah, the $1 million one and done?
Yeah, pumped. Can't wait for that. Dad'll be pumped too. A rough first year for him after the nice Christmas gift, father-son bonding. Rough, but he's excited. I told him it's $1 million to be getting back into it now.
I'm getting my dad, I'm going to teach him how to use the internet, and I'm going to get him back on Fantasy Golf Championships as well. It's like the only site he can open.
There you go.
Yeah, I can get him like Fantasy National and all that. But yes, there's $1 million guaranteed in the PGA one and done, which starts in the new year. So there's still like 3 months to go fill it up, although it's already 5% full.
Got to keep rolling.
Look at that. One day, 5%. Die hard. So thank you for doing that. I just can't believe that it was an Excel sheet in 2017 and now there's a company willing to put my name on it and give away $1 million.
Pat coin soaring.
Yeah, I'm getting out.
Don't get out.
Yeah, I probably shouldn't do that, right?
That's right.
That's what I heard. Code Mayo at Underdog right now will get you a deposit bonus of up to $1,000 and a Dak Prescott free pick for Sunday, or a Wemby free pick before that. If you do it on Friday or Saturday, you can just add that to any of your NFL entries if you'd like, and that's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So make it easy on myself. Who do you like this week?
Trying to dig in now. It's a bigger slate, so that's the thing, right? We're back to 13 games. It's an 8-5 split. It's kind of a really good week, too, for those that like to play early only and afternoon. It's not what we're doing, I'm just saying, but if you wanted to split it up, you actually can. I'm going to probably play all three slates, and we're going to talk about the main. But there's a lot of good games on here, and that makes for some good conversation when we go through, and there's a lot of value this week that we haven't seen for a little while.
Well, let's start with that, because all the Miami guys are hilariously underpriced.
That and the Tampa Bay guys, they have literally no receivers, but it's a hard one to figure out.
That one's hard to figure out.
But they're all in the same price range.
I can pretty much tell you this Tyreek Hill fella at 7,000, probably a good play, and me and 80% of my friends will be looking at that.
Yeah, I'd say there's probably 80% that won't, but 75, yeah, I'm guessing he's gonna be like 25%, yeah.
He should be higher than that.
Probably. But the thing is I think people are still a little bit worried about Tua, and you don't need to play him with Tua. I'm just saying there is people that are worried with him coming back. Some love the price at 6,100. Others are looking up Twitter doctor surveys showing us of the last 3 years how quarterbacks have played after a concussion and shying away. So it just depends on how you want to do it. But I think that would be a good way to play Chalk Tyreek, is just to get Tua in there. No shit. I mean, get the guy that throws him the ball. But I'm saying if people are going to shy away, that's a way to cut into the ownership a little. He looks like 5 or 6% owned.
What about Waddle?
Yeah, he's fine too. I think, if you look at him, 5,400, he's getting a little bit of ownership. But yeah, the triple stack, you could set it up that way and use James Conner or Marvin Harrison Jr. on the other side or something.
I'd probably use James Conner.
Yeah, I like Conner better. He made the tidbits this morning as well.
That just were the tidbits.
Really good.
James Conner is good, always gets ball.
More than that, it elaborated, but it was definitely the setup there. And even like last week, even right to the end of the game, didn't matter. It was like another 33-yard run he drops on him. Just he continuously goes off, and so just like Kyron Williams does. So similar.
So taking a look at the Tampa side of things, obviously Evans out, Godwin done for the season. So we have Jalen McMillan at $3,700, Sterling Shepard at $3,800, and Trey Palmer at $3,500. Who is the one you think gets all the steam here?
It's so hard to tell. That's what I was going to talk to you about, because the thing is, the big conversation is around who slides into the Godwin role. And typically McMillan has been a better slot receiver. I mean, rookie coming in this year, but in the past. And so people were looking at it, but when they went back and look in the last 5 or 6 plays of the game, when Godwin, or whatever it was, the stuff when Godwin wasn't in the slot, it was Sterling Shepard that they slid in. But that would make more sense on a dime in that game on that spot to just plug him in. So maybe they plug McMillan back in there. If not, you kind of got to take your chances, but they're all cheap. That's the thing.
I'm guessing Trey Palmer is the one that everyone plays because he was sort of the 1v1 replacement for Evans the moment that Evans went out. And
He looks like he's getting the
and
ownership.
he's the cheapest at 3,500.
Yeah, he definitely looks like the one that's getting the ownership right now. Looks like actually McMillan sliding in behind him just because people have seen what he's done already, and Shepard kind of just hit the forefront and now potentially can hit it even further. So currently I see Palmer first, McMillan second, Shepard third, and they're all cheap.
Now, the Run the Sims projections like Shepard the best.
So there you go. That's a good angle.
But I don't know if I do.
I don't know if you want any of them.
That was going to be my next point, because Bucky Irving is out in this game too. He's not playing. So we're going to see Rashad White, who played a lot more than I thought he was going to on Monday night against the Ravens. And then you get Sean Tucker back in the mix at 52. What's White? White's 57. Like, it seems like there should be points scored in this game, even from Tampa with the injuries that they have.
Yeah, 100%.
So there's a way to find value here. People want to mine value in such a big week, and these seem to be the most logical options.
Yeah, and I think the interesting way in this one is obviously, not going to be the conventional coming from me. I'm pretty contrarian when it comes to this stuff, but I think going to the Cousins side and going with like Cousins, London,
Then Cade Otton,
something else, and then use Cade Otton or use Rashad White. Now, Rashad White's ownership will steam up with this news, but there is the potential, and he also made the tidbits for this to drop it here, is the setup of him in the pass catching game. He was actually already getting into the pass catching game with Bucky and Sean there, Tucker, and with Godwin and Evans there. Now they're out. Other guys are, really can open up for him and to have just more opportunities. So another interesting way to do it, Pat, would be go to Baker, go to White and Otton and skip those cheap wide receivers and just try and man the end zone, red zone area and just say the quarterback gets the ball. If he hands it off or throws it to him, or if it's Otton and he collects those catches, you just skip over and don't have to decide. And it still gives you pretty good value for a build across the board that you can still fit some studs in or some mid-tier upside guys.
Well, if you really do feel like the pay up options are safe and there's a few of them that you really want to go to over others, Baker's 67, so he's the expensive one in all of this. 57 for Rashad White, but only 35 for Otton. Right now, it says that 2% ownership. I could see that being 14
for Otton.
For Otton,
yeah, he's going to be through the roof. I've got him way over 15 right now.
Yeah, is he going to be the highest owned?
For tight end, yeah.
So there's a whole bunch of these other spreads this week. Like you got Baltimore favored by 9, the Jets favored by 7. Rodgers is going to play. The Chargers by 7, Denver by 10, Kansas City by 9.5, Detroit by 11.5. So you have these one lopsided sides of games that we're seeing. How do you approach those games?
Yeah, you got to think about them a little bit. I will say, just right off the top, being a Ravens fan and knowing this, the Baltimore stuff, they really do play down to their competition. I know it's Jameis stepping in. That's a whole other conversation to have. I actually think he's viable this week because of those reasons. He's cheap. His receivers are cheap, and they're not the cheap Tampa Bay ones. So you could still get around the game that way. You could still use a Cade Otton because you're already different in your stacks and quarterback, or you could use a White or whatever you want to do there. But the other thing about that game is Henry. Speaking of those values that we just talked about, Derrick Henry in that game, you'd think, 8.5 point favorites. There is a good stat, very long sample in his entire career, actually, that he's 5 fantasy points better in games they win. And I do expect the Ravens to still win. It's tough to go in the dog pound there, but if it's a closer game and a back and forth, we may not see as much of him. And when people have the value, I know Breece Hall is popular. I know J.K. Dobbins, some of the other guys, but I think that people will still have the money to get to Henry. And I'm actually a little hesitant right now on that because he's been crushing, but if there was ever a spot I could see it slowed down, it might be here.
So maybe instead of the Tampa stack, if you just want to choose a value wide receiver, Judy and Tillman would probably be the ones to go to. Judy's 48, Tillman's 33.
Yeah, and I also think the other thing too about it is when you go to that stack, Njoku, who will also be popular, did get a $1,000 price bump, which many may shy away from. He's over the Best Buy pricing. He's not $4,900. He's $5,100, but I still think it's too cheap for the role that he's in. $4,100, he was basically a wide receiver 1 last week. Maybe not the exact same thing again, but that would be another way to get off that Tampa stack when you're already going away from the receivers. Also go away from Cade Otton.
You could use Hunter Henry if you wanted to.
Yeah, I think
he's 38 against the Jets.
Is Will Dissly questionable? But he was getting the same type of work as McBride and
Will Dissly
Cade Otton last week.
Will Dissly has not practiced as of right now.
That's what I thought.
Throughout the week. So if he practices on Friday, he probably is going to go. Now, the other way to look at this is the Chargers are 7-point favorites in this game. They were basically a coin flip on Monday night in a game where they got behind, they could only settle for field goals, and they had to pass the entire time. If you think this game goes to script and they beat the crap out of the Saints, which I kind of think they do, they're just going to run the entire time. You're not going to see as many. Herbert's not going to drop back and pass for 300 yards against the Saints if he doesn't have to.
Right, and Dobbins will pick up steam as the week goes on. It looks like he's already in the mid-range of ownership, and I think it's going to continue because of the spot, all that you said. So if you wanted to get leverage, it would be that way with something like a Disley or a McConkey one-off or something. If you want to go,
McConkey hasn't practiced. He hasn't practiced. Palmer hasn't practiced. I got like Simi out there. Play Simi.
Well, we'll have to see, but that would actually create Herbert value stacks, and you could even mix Dobbins in or go away from it, just to note. But I will say one other tight end while you're there was Tucker Kraft. Been on a tear as well. Numbers up there with Bowers and some of those guys, just goes overlooked. He's 4,600, splits the difference on a K-Dot, not quite, actually a little bit more, but closer to the Njoku pricing. And it's really hard to figure out Jordan Love. So why not just go to the guy that may catch a touchdown from him or more, and that can be really good at a onesie position like tight end that you have to fill up. So I think Tucker Kraft interesting as well.
So just to take a look at the running backs, Barkley's obviously the highest priced at 83, then it's Henry, those two.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that all of the ownership kind of goes around Mixon, Gibbs, Hall, Bijan. And then you said J.K. Dobbins because he's a little bit cheaper.
Yep.
And if you take anyone else in that range that's not them, you're going to have massive leverage.
You will. And in that range we're talking about, but the only other guy, honestly, that I see on this slate is as maybe getting some more is like Achane, who could still get something at 6 because he's just 6,200. And then also we know Rachaad White's going to pick up huge steam at 57.
Yeah, Kareem Hunt's only 63. That kind of makes sense. He popped up on the injury report, but he's going to be fine, it seems. Pollard would have been one, I think, that a lot of people were going to look at, but it seems like Tajee Spears might play now.
Yeah, I got to wait and see on that news as well. I will say early on, and I don't back myself or push myself into a corner on builds. I'm going to have all different styles with my portfolio, but definitely a ton of running backs this week. So 3 running back builds seem really good on paper, and I'm going to be with plenty of them. But I'm saying if you wanted to go against it, that would be the way. But there's a lot of options. Like we didn't mention too, Javonte Williams.
At $6,000, yeah.
Another good spot.
Chase Brown at 58.
Yeah. So and you mentioned the Hunt one a second ago. I was going to bring him up. So yeah, there's actually 10 to 12 that you could make a solid case for. And then it's not like the leverage ones are bad. Like you said, like pivots that you're doing up there just to pivot off of Mixon and go to Kenneth Walker. Yeah, it's against Buffalo, whatever, but I'm just saying like that's just an example, going down the board more like Bijan's there, Cook, Chuba Hubbard, who everybody wanted all season. Now nobody wants and is squeezed. I get it. I'm just saying this is situational stuff, but there's so many options that are already good without even mentioning those names.
It got so bad in my season-long lineup that I benched Chuba Hubbard for Javonte Williams.
Which I like anyway, especially for this week.
If it was going to be Andy Dalton, I probably would have played Chuba Hubbard.
Yeah.
It is such a massive downgrade to Breece Hall. But you can't use Deontay Johnson.
You mean Bryce Young?
Bryce Young.
Yeah.
I'd rather, you know what? Breece Hall might be a better option than Bryce Young right now.
At quarterback.
Yes, at quarterback.
Yeah,
just play Wildcat with Breece Hall, see what happens.
They really should try something like that. He's a really good receiver too, by the way, so he can do it all. But I hear what you're saying, and that's why the Hubbard stuff goes away quickly, as does the Deontay Johnson stuff when we get to wide receiver.
And I'm just saying, like, in terms of ownership at running back, like Hull and Achane and Gibbs are just popping off the charts for me. Are you seeing the same thing, or is Mixon up there too?
Mixon is up there, and seeing DeAndre Swift too. I guess we'll talk about that. I mean, some people, he made the tidbits, Caleb Williams, that is, but a lot of people had DeAndre Swift, and a lot of people seem to think that you're not going to be throwing on Washington. Therefore, DeAndre Swift instead, going Chicago versus Washington, but I don't know if it's like a must-have or anything like that. It's a very big slate. So just an interesting note is he's popping up there too because his price is 6,200.
So those are the popular ones of guys that are kind of in between. Said no one wants to play Chuba Hubbard anymore. James Conner seems like a very logical guy here at $6,500.
Yeah,
just falling in the middle of everyone.
That's the problem. I mean, he's definitely still a great play. We already just talked about it. He fits those other builds. Maybe that's where he gets a little late steam, but he's more in those builds than he is on his own or something. And yeah, it's just mainly because of price. When you have Achane, when you have Javonte Williams, when you have Dobbins, people can get up to Breece Hall, just that whole range. And now even below him is going to be Rachaad White. So really, he just has to get squeezed somewhat because of all those other options that people prefer.
Are you surprised that Achane has this much like ownership behind him right now?
I think it's going to drop. Yeah, I think it's just an early projection because I think what's going to happen is obviously people are more comfortable. They've seen the Tyreek video saying he's ready to go off now that his guy's back and all that. So I think it will drop as the week goes on. And also with the Rachaad White stuff being $500 cheaper on top of all those other options we've already mentioned, I think his is the one that comes down quite a bit.
Do you have any love for Nick Chubb here against the Ravens?
Not really.
He's someone who historically kills the Ravens.
Yeah, I mean, because he has a history, because he plays in the same division. So.
Yeah, but it just even because when you would have all this. I mean, you being a Ravens fan would know. It's just like, hey, if everyone rushes for 60 yards a game against the Ravens, and like here comes Nick Chubb with 200 yards.
Yeah, the Puka Nakua thing last night. It'd
Oh
be
my
the same,
God.
same
Yeah.
type of thing, right? You get a guy back, and last week I didn't know how much he was going to get, and he was definitely involved more than I expected. Puka, same way last night. So it's little things like that you can monitor. But I do, like I said, think that game stays closer than people think. I mean, the way it's been for Watson all season, unfortunate injury. Sorry to see, hate that. No matter what you think about the guy, you don't want to see someone get injured that way. But Chubb, Winston coming in should make for some fireworks, and you can throw all over the Ravens. That's been the case all season.
Teller coming back as well for the Browns, which listen, it's not to excuse Deshaun Watson and how poorly he played, but mostly all of his good offensive linemen have been out all year, and now they're starting to get those guys back the moment he's out.
Well, that's what was crazy about it was, again, not, all the other stuff aside with him. It was like, the guys are coming back getting healthier. Chubb's coming back. Like you thought there would be a turnaround for them. And then on the same day he gets injured, Chubb goes off, Amari Cooper scores in Buffalo. Like everything's going the right way for the other guys around him. So it's just the way it goes and the way the world works sometimes. But yeah, this is a interesting spot. That game, lower total as well, just to note, 44.5 because of the other stuff that I talked about, the AFC North, the battle, tough place to go into. I really do think the Ravens play down to their level. That's typically what happens.
This is also the time of year you need to start really paying attention to weather as well. It's going to start getting colder. It's going to start getting windier. You might just have cold wind with rain. That's never fun to play in. So
You want to tackle Derrick Henry?
Yeah,
I saw that one this week too.
We get to
the Cuss
de-hember.
thing came true.
Well, Anthony Edwards said that he could tackle Derrick
I'd give
Henry.
him better odds than
You know what? I would too. The guy, how tall was Anthony Edwards? Like 6'9"?
6 something. He's definitely up there. And he's bigger
he's
than
probably,
you think.
He's probably bigger than Derrick Henry.
He looks smaller on the basketball court because of the other guys around him. When he's hanging out with KD, his idol and stuff like that, like, oh, this guy's not. But yeah, KD's like 6'11", so that's what's up. But yeah, I agree. That was closer odds to me at least. Anyway, but it was just funny that someone took the same bit.
It's funny. Like I ran into Steph Curry once outside of when they were in town playing the Raptors. I saw him at Real Sports.
Okay,
he was there like the night before, and just he looks so tiny, and he's so much taller than me. It's outrageous.
Oh, it's great. Yeah, that's the thing. On the court, it's like he's the smallest dude, but out there, one of them. And then when you see him in real life, it's like, holy shit, that guy's huge.
So at receiver, what we're seeing right now, Shepard, Bobo, Tim Patrick, Trey Palmer, Jaden Reed. So Jaden Reed is actually prices out the best points per dollar of all of the high-end receivers. And then Jalen McMillan down at $3,700. Tyler Boyd at $39 with no Hopkins. Ridley hasn't practiced yet this week. It might just be, and we have no idea who's playing quarterback as of yet. It's probably going to be Mason.
I think it's Mason, yeah.
But it still could be Levis. He's practicing, at least as of this recording, in a limited capacity. But this is the week people are going to pay down at receiver and pay up everywhere else to jam in the guys that they want. I guess my question is, we went through this on the strategy show. We talk about this week to week. These pay down receivers that everyone goes to usually suck.
Darius Slayton, pretty damn good.
No one went to him. Everyone went to Trey Tucker that week.
That's true. We got that one right then. I will say, yeah, that's typically what it is. And I guess the other part of it too, and I talked a little bit about this, obviously do more strategy, process, education stuff over at Ship It Nation just to note it. But like the balanced builds have been decent because the quarterback pricing hasn't adjusted. Remember, we've talked about this even on this show some, like we did a little bit of more of a deep dive, but when you're not, like for example, this week, if Breece Hall is the highest running back you need, but you're pairing him with a $5,700 Rashad White, pick up a bunch of money. Tight ends just never get priced up, and even when they do, they're not typically needed. You're getting $3,500 tight ends that are coming through. Perfect. You got to fill that spot anyway. Fill it in or pivot off the chalk one. There's still another cheap one right there. Defenses are cheap. So I don't know, like when people are looking for all these extra cheap dudes, it oftentimes can throw the lineup off too, because then you still need everything else to go your way as well. So balanced builds have been coming through pretty good. Same in Showdown this season so far.
It also seems like a very good spot just to avoid all these cheap wide receivers. Do that balance build, and your lineup is super unique.
Well, that's what I'm saying. We can get to, when we get to it, let's just say, for example, a Tua build. Just think of this example, just on a Tua build. If you put Waddle and Tyreek, yes, Tyreek is 7. You're still going to be able to get Otton, Breece Hall. You can get in a James Conner. You're going to be able to fill it out without necessarily needing to drop. And we could have a rule that like we can't go below 4K.
Oh, that's fun.
And do something like that on it and just show people that's, besides your tight end, because I think Otton or someone like that, if you want to fill it in by all means, but you could still probably do it with a 4,100 Schultz or a 4,400 Pitts or a 4,700 Komet. There's all kinds of dudes that you can go to here that would be fit the rule still.
Yeah, you might even get Stone Smart this week. Potentially.
Yeah, if Disley's out.
If Disley ends up out. I don't even see where he is. SM.
That's been another thing though, Pat. I will say, just on the exact same topic and just moving it to a position-based discussion with the topic, is that like the Calcaterra stuff last week, fine, but Njoku's like a wide receiver one that all he does is catch passes and potentially touchdowns. You're paying more. Yes, it was 3,200 versus 41, but you can find $900 anywhere on a slate versus just the days. I find this is what the takeaway was: the days of just needing to play them because they technically are a fill-in and hope that they get a touchdown. You can find real dudes. That's why 2 tight end sets were in lineups last week were so prevalent. Even the $100 Millie Maker winning with 2 tight ends.
Who were the 2 tight ends? Njoku and who?
Njoku and Kittle, I want to say. And Kittle could have an even bigger game, or it might have been Njoku and Bowers. But either way, neither Kittle nor Bowers was what they're 6,100 or 5,800 or 6K or something. Not even close to an upper wide receiver price. And then you had a $4,100 basically wide receiver one at tight end who was chalk, but for good reason.
I am so happy the Niners are playing on Sunday Night Football.
Yeah, because they're hard to get right, or what?
I don't know who's going to be playing for them, how it's going to break down, but it's like, I know I want a part of this game.
Yeah. Some people do really well on Niners showdown slates. I always do like close but no cigar because it's so hard to get it right. You just need
You need Ronnie Bell or something.
Yeah, it's always something with those ones. So last time it was almost Isaac Garindo or something at the end of the game. That 99-yard run just missed the bonus, or it would have shot somebody into like a 2-way chop for $1 million or something.
How often does Kyle Juszczyk appear in Showdown Optimal versus how many people play him every week?
You have to ask Cody Main, someone who's very sharp.
But he was in there for the Super Bowl that one time. I remember. He ended up in the winning lineup.
Yeah, actually, that is true. I do remember that. That was Chiefs 49ers.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was the one. And I don't know. I just don't know how that stuff plays out, but everybody gets a little bit of ownership. That's where, you got to get a sprinkle of all these guys, especially when you're running the sims and putting stuff out there. You fit them in there.
Tight ends for the week. Kate Otten rates out as by far the best value. Points per dollar. It's him, then Disley, who might not play. So that's where Smart would step in for $500 cheaper. But again, I don't know how much that they pass in this game if they get up. They have just shown such a want to run once they're winning. So if you think that the Saints jump out to a lead here, then play all the Chargers' cheap pass catchers. But it's probably not going to be for me. So it's odd. And then Kelsey actually rates out really well. Njoku, obviously. Then you're into your Henrys, Komets, Jatavion Sanders. I'm not doing that again. I was actually thinking about going back to Calcaterra because now no one is going to play him at $3,200. And this is going to be a bit more of a back and forth game, I would imagine.
Yeah. If you want to do it from a back to the well perspective and you were on him last week, I think probably fine.
And
I just think it's insane, some of these prices.
But he fits some of these game stacks. Like, I like that game a lot.
I just don't know if he's ever going to give you a performance that's required or even helps. Like, he's played tons of games where he's played 36 snaps, 39 snaps, 57 snaps for one. Like, his best ever is 10.7 or something. That is nice at 3,200. I'm not denying that. I'm just saying the problem is
that's it.
You've got real dude. Dalton Kincaid is 4,900. Trey McBride is 55. Does that cost more? Yes, but these are like break the position, spots, and their prices are nothing.
I don't know if we can call Kincaid that anymore. He just doesn't do anything.
It does, yeah. And
he's like Sam Laporta. He just doesn't do anything. And then you're paying a premium for him anyway. Like their prices haven't adjusted enough down for the performance that they put up.
It's more of an until he does thing. But yeah, like I said, like for example, even just the Otten stuff, he'll be chalk. But like just much more. Like he's had 3 performances in the last 5 games.
He's been
4
good.
That trump Calcaterra, and he's 3,500. And people are like, oh, that's such horrible chalk. You can get different in a million other places. Chalk ends up on the winning lineups every single week. So just looking at it from that angle, then of course you're taking your shots on other guys that you think could do it, whether it's a Cole Kmet because it's just filling the spot. We know he can get 2 touchdowns in a game. Will he? Probably not, but can he? Yes, that's where I'm saying the prices just aren't high enough on these positions.
My favorite tight end in the league is $2,700.
Who's that?
Lucas Kroll.
Oh man.
Love this guy. He's great. If his last name wasn't Kroll, I wouldn't care, but his name is Kroll.
Yeah,
the Punisher.
You roll him out. I used him in Showdown last time, but
I bet him first touchdown, anytime touchdown, and he got overthrown for the first touchdown. It sucked.
That would have been nice, yeah.
But he hit his overs easily.
I think, like I said, the Tucker Craft 4,600, Njoku 51, McBride 55, Kmet 47, Pitts 44. All these guys, even Dalton Schultz, 41. I think all these are real options this week. And Kate Otten's there at 3,500.
What about your boy, Mark Andrews?
Not really my boy. It's like, I know he plays for the team that I cheer for, but good for him bouncing back and showing up. It's just, play him with Lamar if you're playing him, I guess, and that's the play. Hope that he gets 2 touchdowns.
I honestly think that the way to do this week, it's Otton, Henry, or Fant, or some mix of those.
Oh
three.
yeah, I forgot to mention Fant too.
They're all sub 4K. They're all in great spots, and 3 weeks from now, all these guys could be like $5,100 based on what they've been doing lately, and the pricing hasn't caught up yet.
Yeah, Fant's got 3 of his last 5 that beat a guy like
and no DK.
Calcaterra too, and now it looks like no DK exactly. So also another way that you could just do Geno Smith this week is just Geno Fant, and then
also,
not try and figure out Bobo and all this other stuff up the middle.
Don't like Geno outside, like Josh Allen. Bills, if we could figure out who to put with him. And then Kenneth Walker, maybe even Fant on the way back if you want to just save money. But I don't like Bobo. Cuss loves Bobo.
That tells you everything you need to know.
Yeah, maybe bet him first touchdown or something. Like they enjoy like a jet sweep with Bobo near the goal line. It's a play that they run, but
the triple stack will be cheap because Geno's 5,900, Bobo's like 33, which is a pivot off of the cheap Tampa guys, and then Fant is also a pivot. Like for example, every single lineup that has Cade Otton for 35 and Trey Palmer for 35 can go up $200 to Noah Fant and down $200 to Bobo. And so this is just a prime example, right? And then you save money on Baker down to whatever. If people
it's like $1,000 down.
Yeah,
from
so
Baker to
that's a
Geno.
prime example, and then you'd go up from a whoever you have to another guy like the 55, 57 goes up to 67. You're almost at Dobbins over White, for example, $200. Find it at defense.
Davis filled in for you last week, so shout out Davis. Thank you for doing that. And I made a big case to him of why you should just play Washington D in every lineup. And it worked.
Yeah, Washington versus Carolina, 3,400. Nice.
First touchdown of the game. The D. It was nice.
I was not in studio and almost won the Millie Maker. So of course,
But you didn't, so now you can win it this week.
That's the hope this week. Yeah.
What were you on last week? That lineup?
That lineup was a Watson lineup. So it had 5 points from Watson, but with I was in 29th place with by far the most PMR of anybody. I had Kittle, I had Hunt. That game was 16-14 at the half, and I had those two already doing their job. And then I had Kyron Williams and the Rams D. They were up 20-6 with 3 minutes left in the third quarter. And I had all that left, and I needed 7 points to win the live final seed as a consolation. I got 6 points in the final 12 to 19 minutes of that game from all those guys in those game scripts. It was the worst run of my life.
That's absolutely
But we'll get it back this week.
Yeah, now you're going to run good this week.
Nobody cares where Carter. We're right back to it, and we'll get it done this week. That's the key.
I mean, as well as you could run this week, you're not running as good as Rick, who's playing like every course in Australia I saw on
Yeah, I
his
saw
Instagram.
that too. He
Looks
looks
awesome.
like living the life over there.
Defenses for this week. Any cheapies pop out to you right away? Falcons at 26. Bears at 27.
Probably of what people are actually playing or what I see.
What you see?
Oh, Carolina defense is the stone minimum going against Bo Nix, who we haven't even talked about yet, and is going to be Bo Nix is going to be popular. Javonte Williams is going to be popular. Bo Nix,
Kroll.
Yeah.
There's your pivot.
Bo Nix throws picks. We've had it since day one. But
Bo Nix doesn't throw when he don't have to, and they're 10-point favorites.
That's the key.
So playing Carolina's D might not be great here.
Depends. Yeah,
I don't think so. Just because their D is horrible, and I don't think they're going to face pass attempts.
it's possible, but it's just more of what I was talking about. If you land there, I'm okay with it. You're talking about cheapies. I think you want to go up to like 2,700 or above. There's plenty of options this week.
Say Falcons at 26 would probably be the cheapest I'd want to go because I'm trying to make like a case in my mind for some of these other ones. I guess Seattle at home at $2,500 against Josh Allen. Although Josh Allen hasn't thrown a pick yet this year.
I like the Falcons. I like the Bears too, going up against Washington. They're going to get some steam, but that's fine. Washington themselves going up against Chicago on the other side. If you don't believe in the Caleb Williams stuff and the DeAndre Swift stuff, then you can go with the Washington D. But that's just three options below 3K that are sitting right there, and I'm sure there's others, but that would be three that I would think of off the top.
If you had unlimited money to play any three defenses this week, and it fit perfectly for you.
Ravens for sure. They're going up against Jameis Winston. All he does is give it away. I like that bucket right there though. To be honest, of like the Chargers,
Jets, Chargers, Ravens,
and
Packers.
even Kansas City, even Denver. Actually, sorry, I should say that 5 right there, 33 to 37. Probably the winner this week because that's calling a lot. But I'm just saying if you wanted to land there and just get different, that's also. It's weird to do this, but that's also the exact price as the cheap wide receivers. in there. So I know you have to use a defense spot and you have to do whatever anyway, but you're kind of you're moving pieces around.
I think I would rather play Broncos D than Sterling Shepard.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, it's a weird way to look at it. It doesn't really calculate, but the point of it is just sort of you've got money to spend. So that's where you can spend it instead, right? Instead of, going cheap there to pay up a D, you're just going balanced. When we get to those balanced builds where you can't go below 4K except for tight end and defense, the one-off positions, that's where I would say you'll see that this works really well and you can just land on these guys no problem.
Packers D at 32, I don't think is going to be popular because people seem to like the Jags this week. But I think that's another good spot just playing against the Jags.
What about Houston?
Houston is at 31.
And as a way to chop into that Mixon ownership, you could just double down. If Mixon does score 2 on the ground, which we've seen plenty, then they are going to be forced to do some stuff on the Indy side where we can see some mistakes made, and that could be a good defense as well.
Of course, and they bring a ton of heat, and that's usually pretty good against Anthony Richardson if you can get him dropping back to pass and make some terrible decisions. I have them projecting it to be the most popular D right now, though.
Who's that?
The Texans.
Okay, I have...
Texans, Ravens, Chargers.
I've got Chicago as the most popular right now going up against Mariota. Or what's expected to be.
Yeah. Do you think it's going to be Mariota? Would you play Mariota this week?
Seems like it now.
The other ones I was thinking about just to get weird off some of the popular games, either taking Arizona's D if I'm not going to use Tua and Tyreek, or just use Miami's D if everyone is loading up on Dolphins and A-Chain. That, maybe they're just not good and Miami's D scores for them. Keeps them off the field.
That's definitely possible as well, is if you just use them together or something.
The other one I was thinking about was the Colts, 27. Not a good D, but I'm not impressed with Houston's offense.
The Colts are nice because the Colts are actually really good. So let's talk about them for 2 seconds for a couple of reasons. One is it could end up being double leverage in the sense that, or triple leverage really, because if Houston D is more popular, you're flipping the side, you're going to Indy. Mixon is going to be popular, so it's the defense against Mixon, and Chicago is the exact same price going against Washington. So Indy D just makes a ton of sense at 2,700 for those 3 reasons.
For almost about 2 decades, the irons were really the only good part of my golf game, unless you include 300-yard drives, which meant hitting it about 150 yards straight and 150 yards with slice into the woods to the right. So I finally went and got lessons, straightened out my swing, and all of a sudden I could drive the ball pretty decently, pretty straight. And then my irons just kind of went wayward with the new compression that I was getting onto the ball. So it was time for me to make a change with my irons. So when I heard about the new PXG Black Ops irons and how they can dramatically improve my game, I had to give them a try. Booked a fitting with the PXG location, brought in my current irons, and took the PXG challenge. The staff was amazing. We worked on my ball flight through TrackMan in order to find the perfect irons and the perfect length and the perfect loft for what my game demands these days. And the new Black Ops irons are incredibly easy to hit, they maximize performance, and they're fun. Oh, and they're only $149.99 a stick. That is a great price for a great golf iron. So take the PXG Irons Challenge. It's a ton of fun, and if PXG's new Black Ops irons don't outperform your current irons by delivering either more distance or tighter dispersion, that means better accuracy, during your fitting, you'll get a $250 MasterCards reward card. Hurry, this offer ends October 7th. Book your fitting today at pxg.com. That's pxg.com. Let's build some lineups then.
Let's do it. Where are we going to start?
Let's start with the optimal. I ran the Sims at runthesims.com, and you can too. Use code Mayo. Get yourself a discount over there. Bo Nix is the quarterback of this lineup with Breece Hall and Devin A-Chain as the running backs. I have Jamar Chase in here, but I do not believe that is correct. Now I have to go look at the lineup that I generated. Result. No, it is Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase, Sterling Shepard, and Amon-Ra St. Brown as the receivers, with Cade Otton at tight end, Bobo at the flex, and your guys, the Ravens D, bringing up the rear.
So even in a lineup, this is just to prove the defense thing this week. So just, again, I'll do defense last like always because I don't care, but we just listed like 10 good options. But this lineup has 2 8K receivers and is still getting there. What was the Tampa Bay receiver it chose? Sterling Shepard?
Yeah.
Okay, and then it was Bobo in the flex.
But you could drop to McMillan and get Denver D if you wanted to.
So I'm just going to save this so we know what it is. I will say I don't like where does Run the Sims have Rachaad White right now? Because obviously that news kind of just came out. I know most places haven't adapted yet, but
let's see. Rachaad White at running back. Yeah, he's still buried right now because the update's coming in like an hour from now. So Rachaad White projects as like his
So let me just take out.
Like he projects well, but not great.
Let me take out the 2 8K receivers and Bobo for a second.
Okay.
Only because I know what this will turn into by the end of the week. So I'd
So-
rather look at it from that perspective. We're going to get them back in.
So White as the flex.
And I'm going to put White in. I don't know who is actually, I didn't look at the schedule to know the exact flex, but just to see the pricing. And now if we were to go back, who was the 2 receivers again? It was Amon-Ra and Chase.
Chase. So you could use Higgins instead of Chase, and then you could probably still use
I want to see
Amon-Ra.
if we put one of them back in, what it gets. So we need a 6 or 6,300. Is there anybody at 6 or 6,300?
61 you could use, instead of using Bobo, you could use JSN.
6 is Tank Dell.
Ugh.
That's going to, but I'm saying on projections, he's going to pop. Is he 6 or no? He's 63. Sorry.
JSN is 61.
It's
He's the most expensive of all the Seattle receivers without DK, and so inevitably he is the one that no one is using.
so here it is, and this projects the same right now without the White bump. It's what you said. You put in White over Bobo. Instead of Bobo, you have a balanced JSN who still fits the same spot if no DK as expected, and you land on Amon-Ra. So it was really just a 2v2. It was Bobo and Chase for JSN and Rashad White. And we're only doing this because we expect the Rashad White stuff to bump up huge, and that's going to change the build a little bit. I think you still got your cheap receiver in there. You still got your D in there. Everything's fine. I think that makes more sense.
What I would like to do to this lineup, and we'll try to figure it out a little bit. Should we use Krull with Nix or just use Nix? Is Nix a solo guy? Like if you ever want to just solo Nix?
Definitely solo Nix, but also if you want to get maximum output in something like a large field, I think like Sutton, I think Franklin, he made the tidbits today. He looks,
Krull, $2,700.
yeah.
Who's going to catch the touchdowns? Krull.
Yeah, you like your guy. I think that's a horrible play.
No,
But
a great play.
he's
Great
never
play.
crossing anything. Like he's
He's
27.
great. He's going to cross the goal line for
Yeah,
touchdowns.
maybe. We'll have to see, but if he does, you're going to make a lot more money just betting your any times and stuff like that than you are in DFS.
2
That's my take.
touchdowns. Krull.
Maybe needed at that point.
No, maybe scores 5 touchdowns.
Yeah,
then
that's
you're gonna
a-
need. Then you're gonna
then
need.
you're
him.
definitely
You're
gonna
gonna
need
feel
him.
pretty stupid, aren't you?
I'll be fine with it. Yeah, we'll move on to another week, but I think that's
Let's get rid of A-Chain and let's get rid of Amon-Ra and turn Amon-Ra into Tyreek.
okay.
And that gives us 7,600 for a running back. Now, I mean, we can move. Let's just move White to the
Let's
running.
just move White up. Yeah.
Move White up, so that gives us 7,600 for a flex. Jonathan Taylor is not a name that we've brought up at all because everyone's using Mixon. It looks like he's returning from injury. He's been great basically every game that he's played so far, and no one's using him.
Yeah.
This reminds me a lot of the Jahmyr Gibbs situation. Like last week, I got carried to the min cash line by Jahmyr Gibbs in Washington D.
Yeah, if you want to play the narratives of the guys coming back and just crushing, JT would fit that one as well, and he does have the best O-line in football for what we've seen this season so far. So pretty solid spot for him too. But I think people would just play Gibbs there at the.
I do want to get up to Broncos D. Broncos D
Let's
and
do
Bo
that.
Nix. There's the stack,
Yeah, you can do that. Let's do that.
and that leaves us 7,300. Like that gives us Bijan.
How do we have 73?
Bijan as a flex because I moved A-Chain into White, like moved White up.
I did that.
and used Tyreek instead of Amon-Ra.
But do you still have JSN
Yes.
and Kate Otten, or you went to Krull?
No, I used K-Dot.
So I show 7,200 left. Oh, I went to the wrong D. That's 38. That's why. Sorry. Yep. So what do we got with 73?
You get Broncos D and Bijan.
And Bijan fits your triple Tampa Bay stack.
There we go.
Right. So you got that. That actually projects about the same.
Could you? Now this is actually interesting. Could you do this? I mean, maybe for pure upside purposes, you wouldn't. But I'm not usually trying. Like, I don't enter lineups in the Millionaire Maker. I don't really care about that. So I don't need the 99.999999% outcome for me to happen.
Mhm.
If I'm playing in like the 150, is it possible that like, hey, I've identified Shepard and Otten as cheap plays that I can use? Can I use them without Baker and just fill out my lineup? So I think there's upside elsewhere.
Last week was a prime example. Tons of people just played Elijah Moore and Njoku. Again, also when you're involving the tight end spot, which we talked about, you have to play. I call it a onesie position for a reason. You have to play one. So if you want to fill it with Krull and just kill it off, you can do like a combo pack. And in this case, at 38 and 3,500, as long as one of them does something, it also depends what the week looks like. The challenge to some of it sometimes with a week like this is 13 games. Means there's probably more scoring, right? There's more opportunities for scoring. Therefore, we're probably getting a higher lineup than last week. 185 won the Millie Maker.
Is that true?
Yes.
185? What's the lowest ever? I feel like there was a 160.
I feel like there's a 160 in there somewhere. I have to go back to my records and look, but I think that like in general, You got to think of it from that perspective. So what can they actually do for your build in any tournament? That is, because other people are going to play other styles of lineups in your tournament, even though they shouldn't. That's a secret of satellites and playing these qualifiers. You won your seat to King of the Beach last year playing a Bryce Young
Who scored
lineup,
8 points.
and it's fine, but it let you get all the other ceilings in there, and everyone's so focused on mainly just putting in like their best lineup with just a small twist. It's like, no, I want to just dust the field or not. It's so hard to win what is essentially a winner-take-all, and in many cases, yes.
I won that qualifier by, I think, 25 points.
Right, because you played an outlier type of lineup, and that's what's happening. The bigger the field you get, no matter what the format. Oh, well, it's only a single entry. You can do way less. There's still somebody that's crazy that's going in there saying and playing a good lineup that is 4 ways stacked of we've seen a couple weeks ago with like a Baker, Godwin, Evans, Otten, whatever, and the defense. And you got a 5-man onslaught. When that stack just goes off, that just dusts the field. And everyone who has Baker, Evans thought they were good. And they're like, oh shit, that guy has all 5 of them. I have 2. That's the problem, right? So that's the type of outlier lineups that you can do. But these lineups are getting away with it more and more often, like the one you have on the paper right now. You still have correlation with Bo Nix and his defense. Just he's the running back for this lineup and the scorer, and you don't know who he's going to pass to. It makes sense. You're still saying Tampa Bay Atlanta is going to be a good spot to target with a 46-point total. And you've got White, Shepard, Cade Otton, and Bijan.
Oh, shit. I forgot I had White. So I do have. Yeah, I'm turning this into Kroll. Screw it.
Okay. Get Kroll in there.
Kroll. Now I got all the money. Now I can get up.
And you don't need, we've already identified, you don't need a Carolina guy. So
I'm getting rid of Rashad White, and I'll turn Sterling Shepard into Palmer.
Do you have Breece Hall? Let's
Oh, yeah. I got Breece Hall in
Let's
there.
put Breece Hall up there with Bijan, right?
Well, let's say for the flex, it gives me $6,900. Who's there? It gives me Dobbins.
Who else do you have?
Well, I turned Otten into Krull.
Yep.
Shepard into Palmer.
Oh, you went to Palmer to make
And
it.
then
That's the $300. I got it.
And then I can turn White into Dobbins.
Yeah, I like this. Let's do that one. All right, 3,500.
And that way I don't have 3 Tampa players without Baker.
It's also interesting if people don't want that. Who's the I've got
Dobbins should go in the flex, by the way,
Yeah.
and Bijan should go into the running back spot.
Now we got the lineup, and this actually projects the exact same as the original. And
Well, Krull probably projects for 28 points.
with those 5 touchdowns he does, yeah, there you go. So Bo Nix, Krull, and his defense. Just play the triple Broncos stack.
Just think that, the Broncos are my super lock in betting this week, too. I think they crush.
Yes.
So I also thought the Vikings were going to crush the Rams. So take that with a grain of salt.
I think, don't the Broncos have like a 26-point team total as well, which you just never see?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, this spot is looking very good. And
I would
to Javonte ownership for sure.
Yeah, and this gets away from Javonte, too.
Mm-hmm.
And he scored the 2 touchdowns on Thursday night last week.
This has lots of leverage in it because, for those not following or not understanding fully, like if everyone's playing Javonte, which they are with the defense, and we're playing Bo Nix and Krull with the defense, we are still sort of manning the red zone, end zone area. We're just hoping and begging that it's not
flips our way.
Javonte, and it goes that way instead. Whether he runs it in, he can make up for Krull. That's like a combo pack, whatever. A lot of people are playing Drake London in this Tampa Bay spot at same 7,200 price at the wide receiver position. We've got Bijan instead, and Bijan's on the flip side of Rashad White, who's going to get popular. Of the 3 receivers, maybe Palmer does pick up the steam, but with McMillan and Shepard there, it's got to just spread out somewhere. So we've got that. You still get a chalky Breece Hall. You get the fill-in with Njigba for Metcalf. You get the popular Tyreek. So there's really only 3 popular pieces with Hall, Hill, and probably Dobbins. And even Dobbins has to get kept in check some with everything that's come along and all those running back prices that we talked about. Breece Hall, Hill will for sure be popular. The rest, maybe not so much. So this is a solid lineup overall.
Winner.
Don't know if it's winner. I can
I
sell a
entered
lot
it.
of things, but this
it's a
is
winner now. I'm counting the money.
Let's
go spend it. Let's quit the show. Let's go spend the money and see what happens.
This is how I actually get the Millie Maker this week.
Yeah,
perfect. This will be the
Krull.
lineup.
Krull's the key.
Oh, Krull. The K in Krull stands for key. The key to the slate is Lucas Krull. Let's do it.
Let's build up a stack. I want to start with Philadelphia and Cincinnati. I don't know why I'm being drawn to that game so much, but I am.
Okay.
Just, I guess, with Philly can score some points in the first quarter, that would be nice.
One interesting thing is Joe Burrow, 7K. You already talked about it with Chase showing up in the optimal. When Chase goes off, Burrow goes off. It's like a decent sample, one that I'll actually be comfortable talking about. And also a really strong sample over like the last 85 Millie Makers. Burrow's on like 10% of them.
Really?
So he's on like 7 or 8 of the last 80.
Is he usually correlated in those Millie Makers with Higgins or Chase?
Heavily with Chase.
Okay.
But Higgins has been on fire lately too. And you can double stack because again, pricing allows it this week with the value that we have. I know they don't always go off together, but the point is, if you wanted to, you could.
The 1 week when we built this out on the show, that was the lineup you needed, the Chase Higgins Burrow stack.
Yeah. And that was all due to pricing as well and the value that was available on the site. Was that Tracy week? $4,300 Tracy?
No, because that was a Sunday or Monday or Sunday night game. I forget what game it was.
No. The week Tracy was $4,300. The first week that he played on the main slate.
Oh,
I
yes.
think that was that
Against
week. And
Seattle,
it allowed you to get to the double stack. We do the review. It's the Takedown Breakdown show every Monday looking at it. So I remember some of them, but that was what I believe. Because people were like, well, they never go off together. It's one, it's until they do, and they have. And two, it's price dependent. A lot of the stuff we talk about value is the price. When one is 86 and the other's 8, then yeah, it's going to be tougher. But when they're 86 and 66 and things like that, you can get there.
The problem is this is so expensive now. And you'd like to jam some Eagles in here. And all the Eagles are super expensive too, except for Calcaterra.
I think the way to do it then is just to go straight up.
Burrow Chase?
And just try with Burrow Chase first.
Burrow
and then
Chase.
I think you kind of got to take your shot on
Devonta Smith?
I would actually go AJ Brown, I was going to say, and then see if we can do it. And you just call it, that's your triple pack if they go off. Because AJ Brown has been really good.
That gives us a quality $4,400 for the rest of our players.
Well, what I got to say is, again, we got to look for another value spot, but the original lineup we landed on, the optimal, was with
Chase and Amon-Ra.
Amon-Ra, but Nix was in there. So all we have to do is find a different value spot there, and we know we have Rachaad White. We're not playing.
All right, let's put in Otton.
Let's put in Otton White. I think you can play both.
Do you want to do Otton White, or do you want to do White and try to break it up and go Fant or something like that?
I want to try and avoid another 3K wide receiver. So I'm thinking at 5,700, that's our best bet, and just try and get the touchdowns from Tampa between Otton and White.
Would you, instead of using White, what about using Sean Tucker? I do think it's going to be a split. Like if Sean Tucker takes over the Bucky Irving role, which I would assume that he does, and there's still a lot of value there, and he's probably the one who touches the ball near the goal line.
Yeah, sure.
You lose out on the cheap like dump off points, but it's not like they won't use Tucker. It's like they used like Bucky Irving was getting his catches last week. It's just White had the better game.
It's just depending on how you see it going. I mean, a lot of the praise around Sean Tucker is the big game that he had there, but that was just he robbed Bucky a bunch, and they didn't need Bucky a lot down the stretch because it was out of control. He didn't even play half the snaps that game to get 30 points.
No, that's true.
So good news on that front. You could make a positive out of that, but I'm saying that's the key. He's only saving you
he saves you $500. And listen, we're pressed for cash in this lineup to begin with. But I guess my point would be that I think that Tucker filling in for White in that circumstance in that game against the Saints is a lot different than Tucker filling in for Bucky Irving. Because I feel like that Irving's role and White's role are pretty defined in what they do on the team. Yeah. And then they're wanting to play Sean Tucker, so they're mixing him in everywhere. That he's a better fit for the Irving role than he is for the White role on the screens, on the third downs, where the first two downs, or even like series themselves, could
he's going to be another leverage option on this slate because White is going to get popular. This is
I don't think like
that's definitely an option. I just think that one thing I'm noticing is we're hard selling Sean Tucker.
I'm not trying to hard sell him.
No,
I'm just
not
saying
even
that
bad.
like, if we flip a coin, it's like 60-40 that White outscores Tucker this week.
I think it's way higher, but that's just how I think.
Okay,
but
how about this?
It doesn't matter.
To score 20 points, I think it's 60-40. If you're looking at who scores 13 versus 2, then yeah, White's gonna be your best bet for a floor. I think they both possess very
I think nobody in the
upside.
world knew who Sean Tucker was until he had
I
that
drafted
one big
him in keeper last year. Terrible pick.
Yeah, so I think it's not even bad. What I meant by the hard sell is like we're a step ahead because having to think about that to fit him into say 500, we can't get there. Like this lineup tells you everything you need to know about how hard this type of build is. You probably have to like T Higgins it and maybe keep Brown or keep Chase and go to Devonta Smith or something like that because realistically, even when you put Sean Tucker, you do like a cheaper
I got
Javonte for $6K.
I got it. You got to go double tight end and use Hunter Henry as your other tight end.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Henry's been good. Henry's like their wide receiver 1.
Yeah,
you talked about Njoku being the receiver 1 on Cleveland. Henry's been the receiver 1 since May has been the starter.
Yeah, you can plug him in. I'm just saying, like, this is the type of build you have to get to here. Who else do you have to round it out?
Let's see. I have $5,500 for a running back and a wide receiver now.
So what do you have at defense?
The Colts at 27.
That's fine. So let's go there.
So you could use like Waddle. You could use Downs. What
happens if you use Javonte? You land on what, 5,100?
How much is Javonte?
Cheap.
6 even.
You'd land on like
51 is McConkey, Adunze, Alec Pierce, Leggett. This is a real tough area.
it's like McConkey if he plays only because he's leveraged to the Dobbins stuff that will get popular, but it's not really a good lineup. It's just that's where you land.
You have to really start going down.
Yeah, that's what I said. I just
But
don't think
but this is a spot where you could go cheap receiver, expensive running back. Like you could use one of those absolute goobers at Bobo at 3,300 or whoever it is, and then you could get a real running back.
Let's do Bobo for the sake of this. I know the goal was to not go below it, but that would also be
That gets you up to Ken Walker if you want him.
well.
I guess you wouldn't want Walker with Bobo, but
I would be pulling.
you get Mixon.
I'd be pulling Henry and looking for 5,600. Like, can we get another actual running back or something in there?
Well, if you keep Henry in, you can go Javonte if you want to and get rid of Sean Tucker. And it
Eckler,
leaves you
Madison.
7,000 for another running back, which is James Cook. You could use.
Yeah, like here's an example of how I would do it. I would put in Joku and White and call it a day. It just projects so much better, and we're already off the board that it doesn't matter. So if you kept what you had, basically, you can get Burrow, Chase, Brown, Rashad White, Cade Otton, Javonte Williams, Njoku, the Indy D, and you land on Bobo, who happens to be your fill-in guy.
So Njoku, Rashad White, and who was the other running back?
Javonte Williams.
Oh, yeah, it lands us directly on Javonte.
So you get your Bo Nix. I mean, it's not like you're leveraging him. I'm saying, but you're instead of the Denver side's going to score points. You're not on Bo Nix. It's no problem going to a Javonte. You still have Burrow, who's unowned, Chase and AJ Brown, who aren't going to be super popular. The Indy D in that classic leverage spot we talked about, almost triple leverage there. That this lineup's good and it only projects 8 points off your original, and you've got a ton of opportunity packed into it.
Do you like Bobo?
I will have Bobo this week, especially if Metcalf is out. Bobo the clown chalk, this kind of thing. It could be a thing, but it's $3,300.
I know that we're using Njoku in this lineup. I prefer Cedric Tillman to Bobo.
So take Njoku out and take Bobo out, and let's put Tillman in. Maybe it gets us a little more money. We can find even
Tillman and Bobo are the same price. They're both $3,300.
Okay. What about? Didn't we have a guy at? No, there's like nothing there. That's okay. Let me see one more thing.
Yeah, this is a giant dead zone.
And that's why I was fine with it, with the way it was there. But I just think it's tough because there's not much in that mid-range zone unless you like. McBride is 5,500, but who could you go down to instead? Waddle's 54. Yeah, I don't know.
If you get to Waddle, you could turn Otton to Calcaterra because you're using this game stack anyway.
Yeah, I liked it as 8 points off the optimal with getting Burrow, Chase, and Brown into a lineup, some good running backs, some solid stuff, and we didn't use a Tampa Bay value receiver. We used Bobo or Tillman. And the Tillman Njoku combo pack is what we just talked about too. Like you can definitely use that.
You could use them both and not use Jameis.
100%. Yeah. I mean, they're based on their price. It's like $8K for two of them. And Njoku broke that. I think he crushed that price last week himself. 24 points. So not fully, but solid. And Tillman, if you put the two of them, what they did last week, they really crushed it. And, he needed a backup. But what if you just keep those guys in now? Let's save that. And let's change Burrow to Winston.
Burrow to Winston?
Clearly, if you like those two, you think it's got to be an opportunity. We've already talked about that passing matchup against the Ravens. Tons of teams have went off against him. You're now able to do some stuff here, right? You've got $1,800.
We also didn't talk about Bateman at all because it seems like Zay Flowers might not play.
He almost made the tidbits. So yeah,
he was a name that you ran across.
Let's go to him in a second because he fits this stack. So let's put him in. But let's take out those two wide receivers because I will say this. I broke this rule a couple weeks ago and it cost me like $30,000 probably. So I'm not going to do that again. I didn't do it last time. But a guy like Chase, I typically want with Burrow. Like if Chase has the break the slate game that he's going to do, that it's going to be 35 points. Burrow's there unless he got injured. Like that's the key.
I mean, the same thing is with DK. I find with Geno because when they have their giant games, they're like 70-yard touchdowns.
Yes,
and they do. It's a lot like Tua and Tyreek in a way, but Tyreek still piles up all those little ones too.
And the only way to get around it is if you get a situation like last week where before the injury and everything, but DK was only 6,800. He's typically 78 or 76 or something. You're going to need a little bit more out of him. So I just took it out. We have all the money in the world to work with now, though, Pat. That's the thing. Like,
all right, so I'm going
White
to throw Bateman into this.
I did.
So I'll get rid of the running backs.
Do you want to leave Javonte and put him with the Denver D or something? Because you like Denver D and you want to get Denver action here with them crushing.
Yeah, I think there are better running back plays if we can get to it.
Okay, so what do you want to get to here?
So
Brees?
probably let's put Njoku into the tight end slot.
And take Otten out.
Take Otten out. So it leaves us running back flex, $6,700.
Did you take Indy out as well for now?
Yeah, and I put Broncos D in.
Okay.
So Jameis, Tillman, Njoku with Bateman and AJ Brown, who I do like just objectively as a play. If everyone's going to play Amon-Ra, I'll play AJ Brown.
The key is remembering now, again, you got Denver D, so that covers off that angle, but what other spots do you want to target, or what other plays do you want to make sure you're in on? Like, do you want to be in on Hall? Do you want to be in on Dobbins? Do you want to play Achane instead of Tyreek, thinking that Tyreek's ownership is going to go up and Achane is actually going to come down, and you get a piece of that game, or what are you thinking?
I just like playing Kenneth Walker every week.
Okay, so we could play him. He's obviously going to be in a spot here if other people are going to go to Bobo and Fant and stuff like that, and Walker kind of gets squeezed, so we can put Walker in, 7,800.
So the issue with that becomes, if you do go up to 7,800 and you only have 62 left now for everyone, that if you ended up trying to go somewhat balanced from here, like think about these last three spots as a balanced part of your build, you could use like a Dobbins, Jacobs, Connor type thing.
Instead of Walker?
Yeah.
So if you take out Walker and go Dobbins, Connor.
Oh, you know how you get? Take Jacobs out, do Dobbins and Connor, take out AJ Brown, turn him into Tyreek Hill, and see if that gets us.
Yeah, I already had AJ Brown out too, just because same thing. I want him in a big spot here.
It does, and it leaves us $200 left over if we want it.
What is the finish of it?
Dobbins, Connor, Tyreek, Kenneth Walker.
And leaves you $200.
And leaves you $200. And you could turn Dobbins into James Cook if you wanted to get a bill on the other side of Ken Walker. But
you could also put just Mixon in if you want, but
Mixon instead of who?
Instead of Walker?
I like Walker.
But you like Walker.
I mean, I like Mixon too, but I very much appreciate that the Seahawks have turned to, when they're losing, they just throw to Ken Walker out of the backfield.
Yeah,
now.
he's a good all-around back, man. That's why. So, just trying to see here if there's anything else. Like 300 gets you 5 is 69, 71. So do you like Dobbins, Denver, or do you like Jets, Brees?
Jets Brees is pretty good.
That's an interesting way to do it, especially. Yeah, fits exact.
Does it? Yeah, it's probably a better team, right?
That's very close. It's not that far off. It's like 2 points better because Brees projects so well.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a good lineup, and it's kind of leveraged up in a few different spots because you're doing, I don't think as many people get to the Jets. You've got Winston, Connor, Bateman, who even if he does pick up a little steam,
he's 43.
Walker and Jets. And this is a prime example of, well, no, because we got Tillman in there, but I'm fine with that. Tillman is not even close to what those Tampa Bay guys are at. And we didn't go to Otten. We didn't go to the other stuff. So we don't even have Rashad White. So there is no Tampa Bay in here, but I think that's fine too. They're hard to pick through. So yeah, I like that lineup. That's nice.
All right. There is one team that I did.
Oh, even the Arizona Miami mini.
Yeah.
I just
with
noticed
Connor and Hill. That's why I ended up going to Hill and Connor.
Tyreek would be another example, just to focus on that for a second, as people like the strategy stuff. They always comment on it. Is like that's a opposite of what I just said. He's the DK Metcalf of last week that I talked about. He does not need to be with Tua. He can get you 10 for 170 and no touchdown. Doesn't mean Tua's a rock star. You still get the Jameis stack to go off and everything's there, and Tyreek is still crushing and needed, but not with his quarterback, versus a Chase is usually going to get it through like 8 for 150 and 2. That's going to be huge for Burrow. That's half his yards to the bonus, 2 touchdowns passing, et cetera, et cetera. That's the difference maker in this.
Here's the difference maker lineup right here.
All right, what do we got?
Aaron Rodgers.
Oh, God.
Garrett Wilson, Devontae Adams, with Hunter Henry as the run back.
Okay, just 1 second.
Everyone's playing Breece Hall. Let's go to the other side. There's one game where Rodgers looked excellent this year against this terrible, soft Patriots defense, as their head coach called them.
Okay, and the quarterback makes it cheap enough, and those 2 wide receivers being 7,100 or less, and you get your Hunter Henry in a good way. I like the start. Now let's just put the running backs we like in it without getting too crazy, because you already are so far off the wall.
Mixon?
I think so.
Mixon and Javonte, let's say.
Let's do that. Let's get pieces of those games where we think they can smash.
So now we're down to 4,300. So we probably need to use one of those cheap.
Do you want to do something with
Crazy?
Rashad White, Otten, or any of the cheap Tampa guys? Do you want Tampa in this lineup?
I don't think that we need Tampa. Like I said, I prefer Tillman of the cheap receivers,
So
but we could use Otton as the flex if we wanted to. Because I don't know if we can get back up to enough money to make our flex actually important. Unless we go Tillman, Rashad White, cheap D. That might work.
Is there anyone at 5,800 that you like?
I think Chase Brown is $5,800.
Sorry, wide receiver. No, it's that dead zone again. I know Mooney's there, so technically you can make a case.
Let's see. We go Tillman, Rashad White, and we have 4,000. So we can actually go higher than Rashad White if we do that.
Just wait. So Tillman, we still have Henry in, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you got to Rashad White.
And we can get 6,000 for a flex. Amari Cooper, Travis Kelce.
Chase Brown.
Chase Brown is 58.
Javonte we already have. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe just put the Denver D and leave the money. Like that's pretty solid.
Yeah, you could do that.
Yeah.
Or what you could do is take out Broncos D, and who is one of the the mid-tier Ds that we like. We like Colts D, Bears D.
Go to the Colts. I think that's a good one.
The Colts. Okay. Go to the Colts, and that gives us 7,000 for a flex.
Instead of Rashad White, right?
Instead of Rashad White. So you could have James. You could have Tyreek if you want. Tyreek is your flex.
Or Dobbins. What would you do?
I'd rather have Tyreek. If there's ever a spot to play Tyreek, it's got to be this week, isn't it?
Feels like it. I think, though, Dobbins, man, he looks...
I agree with you. Dobbins looks good.
Dobbins doesn't really get me exactly. So, yeah, you can do either or. I guess they both project almost the same, too. So
You could just cheap out, or you could just be like, I'll just use James Cook, who's probably the worst of those three plays, and see what
How
happens.
much is James Conner? 65?
He's 65.
And then
But all that really does is get us up to a defense. It's 33 if we wanted it, because we're not really changing anything else. Unless we get off of Javonte, I guess. You could go Hill into James Conner and then turn Javonte into David Montgomery or Kareem Hunt if you wanted it. Or DeAndre Swift.
Okay, so who did you put in instead there? You put in...
I didn't put anyone in.
No, who are you taking? You said take out Devontae Adams and take out...
No, you take out Tyreek Hill and Javonte Williams. You
Oh,
2v2 them with James Conner and Tony Pollard or something.
All right, let's do that.
And I think I like this version better.
Yeah, I like that version you had better and just leave Tyreek because you're already different enough at 4 other spots.
You think anyone's using Rodgers?
No. What does he get to? 5%, maybe 3 to 5%?
Yeah, we just triple stack him up. It seems like Lazard might not play.
Who's
So-
the other thing that just came to mind last night? You can't put this guy in the tidbits ever, but it was they were talking about Jeremy Ruckert
Oh, yeah.
over Conklin, even though Conklin got the touchdown last game, just how much Ruckert has been out there. But I'm not doing it. Like, I just can't see it. I would just separate it. If you were only going to play one of Wilson and Adams here, who would it be?
Probably Wilson.
Hey, Mr. Wilson.
But if I'm going to play Aaron Rodgers, I need everyone to come along with him.
Well, it could be someone like a Ruckert who
It
you're
could
not going
be.
to put him in and don't need,
Yeah.
and you're going to get away with it. So I was just trying to see if you leveled up here, like Mixon. You're not playing. So like if you go to, who's the guy I like that you said? Oh, James Conner, and then you plug in the 7K Tyreek, it leaves you 6,600.
Like so you take out Devontae Adams, you're saying?
Yeah, I guess Josh Jacobs fits this one now. That's an interesting build. Oh, that only projects 3 off the original. So we've got Aaron Rodgers, James Conner, Joe Mixon, and Josh Jacobs. Triple J.
So Mixon, Javonte, and Jacobs?
No Javonte. You already had me take him out earlier. I went to
So it's
James Conner, Josh
Conner.
Jacobs, and Joe Mixon, the 3 guys there. I kept Tillman and Garrett Wilson and Henry like you had. I just took out Adams down to Tyreek. So we've got the Conner Tyreek stack. We still have a Rodgers, Wilson, Henry, and then we've got Tillman, Josh Jacob. You get a piece of sort of these other games. You just don't have any Denver is really what it comes down to,
That's okay.
which I don't think is the worst. Exactly.
No, because it might be Franklin or Vale or Krull, most likely.
Franklin. Yeah. Franklin's the guy, maybe.
You like Franklin?
I think I do.
Well, it's probably the week now that Sutton scores after getting 0 targets in a game.
So you know what we still haven't done is build a lineup that can't go under 4K except at tight end and defense.
That's too tough. I don't want to do that.
What about if you just do Bo Nix and Franklin and use Franklin as your 4K guy? I think he's 4,100.
Then we can use Krull.
No. Oh, yeah, you can.
You can use Krull in that lineup. Triple stack.
Let's do Franklin Krull, and we can't go anywhere else except defense.
How
so
much
we can
is
go low.
Franklin? Franklin's 41. Okay.
He's a nice little upper play there. Like he's too much for people because they can just get someone at 37.
It was
35,
basically the same. Yeah.
and it's the same thing. But I like him, and also if you put Bo Nix in there, you still have a ton of money left over, which we are obviously. But it's a double stack. But like once you get to the triple stack, I'm saying it leaves you a bunch of money to do whatever you want.
Jacobs with Packers D or Jacobs with Brian Thomas, because we haven't really talked about Brian Thomas, who's great every week now.
He is very good, and he's still underpriced for what he's been doing.
He's 64.
I just wonder, like, if you just fill this out with the chalk, what happens?
So do you want to go
Like,
Brees?
like Mix and Brees.
Mixon, Brees, Tyreek?
I'm going to put Rashad White, and then I'm going to put Tyreek. Maybe we end up going to James Conner just to see it. Tyreek. We're not going to do Denver D, so let's do what's our $2,700 D get us?
That's Colts.
Oh, no, but we're on Mixon in this one. Do you want to change Mixon to James Conner and try Colts and see?
No, let's try this. Let's go. We still don't have any Jags in this lineup. We can just play Texans D in this with Mixon, right? At 31.
Oh, yeah. Let's do that. Yep.
And that gives us 62 for a receiver and a flex.
I put in Rashad White, so I would have 6,800.
Do we even need to use Rashad White here?
I think like Tampa, you
could use Brian Thomas and Josh Jacobs, I think. No, you can't. Doesn't work. But
How much is Brian Thomas this week?
6,400. But you could use him and Chubb, him and JSN, him and Bowers, him and Javonte. I guess we're not using Javonte Williams here. Brings us back to that zone that we don't really like. Also, isn't Chase Brown over Rashad White like the perfect pivot play?
Let's try that in this lineup. Let's put Chase Brown because we didn't use him yet, and I kind of like that.
I think we could use Chase Brown and Devonta Smith.
Jaden Reed, 6,700, or Wilson, but we already have Brees. That's a good lineup. This is 1 point off the original. Bo Nix with Franklin and Krull. But then you get Mixon with his defense. You get Tyreek Hill. You get Jaden Reed. You get Brees Hall. You get Chase Brown. You could find $100 if you wanted to play White, but I like that pivot that you made. That's part of it.
Couldn't you just play Devonta Smith here with Chase Brown and just get a little mini stack in that game? Devonta Smith coming off his negative points performance.
I think the better play is to play your guy James Conner. I just have a feeling about him.
Okay.
And if you put him in and then drop, oh man, really?
Yeah, we now we have 4 running backs. I don't think they allow you to do that.
No, I was gonna take out Chase and just see if I could fit him. But
is there any Saint you would run this back with? Bub Means?
No.
Taysom?
No.
Okay, I'm with you.
It's tough. Yeah, that's a tough scene over there. So that's really challenging, and I'm not trying to figure that out.
Oh no, I even got the wrong game. It's a Panthers game with the Broncos.
Oh, you were talking. I thought you were talking in general with them. But
no, but I am just even to talk about the Saints. Like, do you have any interest in Olave coming off a concussion and Spencer Rattler is the quarterback?
No, but I did find.
I guess that now we're using Tyreek and Waddle.
This is ugly, but it actually projects good. Is if you go with Bo Nix, Franklin, Krull, Tyreek, Jaden Reed, you can get Brees Hall, Mixon, DeAndre Swift, and the Chicago D paired up. Projects the same as the optimal. If you want any Chicago action in that game.
I feel like that's a game that we should be looking at. It's just I don't know what to do with it. Like I think the move is not to use DeAndre Swift. It's just a triple stack Caleb Williams.
Let's do that.
Just one second. I want to get back to that lineup that you just said. It was mix with Mixon and Hall.
Yeah.
Hill.
And then you get Franklin, Krull, like we already had.
Yeah.
I put Jaden Reed in. Because we're basically swapping because 6,700 is a jet and we already have Brees Hall, so I don't want 2 jets in it.
Okay.
And then it lands you on DeAndre Swift and Chicago, and you're not going to go with Indy D at 2,700 because you have Mixon. So you're good this way, and it still projects really well.
Okay.
But I like your call. Let's try and triple stack Caleb with. Do you want to do Moore and Komet?
Yeah, that's the problem. Who do we? Keenan Allen maybe. They were looking at Keenan Allen and Komet near the goal line in the last time that we saw them.
I don't have the stat in front of me, but Moore was in the tidbits. So that's what I thought about him.
Okay.
But I'm fine with either or. If we need the money, I think
I'm guessing
cheaper.
Keenan's way cheaper. He's not even way cheaper.
He's
actually.
58. It says 800 though if we need it later.
So let's say last second Daniels is active. Use him?
Man, how much is he this week?
7,300.
It would change the slate for sure, but I don't know how much I would get him. I can't really say right now, I don't think.
Which Washington guy would you like to throw in here?
None?
None?
Personally, I think there's just so many other plays that you have better stuff with this week that we're kind of just counting on Chicago scoring and doing the job through their passing game. That's what we've converted to.
Could you...
Brian Robinson,
Yeah, that's what I was... Or even Eckler. Like, if the Bears jump out to a big lead, you probably see more Eckler than Brian Robinson.
That made the tidbits. Brian Robinson, way more... not as game script dependent as you would think.
It's just
even with the Eckler stuff and everything else there.
But it's hard to tell with him because he's been injured for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
That I think it's really thrown off a lot of his usage, and I don't know where he's back to as of this point.
He's 6,400.
He's the same as Montgomery and Hunt and those guys, Pollard and Connors.
Yeah, if you want to run back though, I'd be fine with him here.
I don't know if we have to run back or not.
I don't think you do.
Okay.
I mean, I know you don't. It's Washington, but it's like, if it gets you, it gets you. But you can definitely start it up this way and just call it a day and plug in whatever you want. These guys are all solo owned. It just now becomes, if you're doing this game, you're probably leaving one behind somewhere. So which one do you need to get involved with? Like, do you want Chase Brown because you want a piece of that Cincy game? Do you want Javonte because you want a piece of that Denver game? Like, what do you want to go to next when you're hand building this out?
I guess with the hand build, the want is to just press Breece Hall. I think that's everyone's default option this week, right?
Right.
So is there a way we don't do that?
Well, it's simple. I mean, you go to Devontae Adams or Garrett Wilson instead.
Or use like Bijan and Trey Palmer and see what we're left with?
Sure. Can do that too. Bijan is a super good spot this week as well, by the way, just to note, because of $100 less than Breece and the same price as Drake London and the opposite side of what's going to be popular Rachaad White once it gets there.
So that gets us back to 55. For the Broncos, I just want to use their D.
You went with Trey Palmer, right?
Yes.
Broncos, you just want their D.
So that way, don't worry about Javonte, or if it lands on him, then that's fine. Now we have 6,100 left for all the other positions.
So can you get to Tyreek and Connor?
You can, but now you're really dealing with like a low, I think you jump down to that low 5,000, upper 4 range.
I think it's 48.
Which is not a great spot to be in.
Anything?
Connor. What about Jacobs and Brian Thomas?
Let's do that. Take out Connor.
And it gives us 53, which is not good. Sean Tucker as the flex.
You got Palmer in there too. I think it's fine. Just
Wicks, Sutton.
Well, just let me get there. One thing I'll say for sure is, who did you put in again? You put in Jacobs
and Thomas.
Do you think Thomas, while still cheap enough, requires more? Like, do you think he's going to come along with Lawrence? He's fair enough price. He's fine to do it.
I don't think so. I think he can just get there on his own.
Okay, so one thing I would say is, what happens if you take out the Denver D
and go to Colts D?
Put in Javonte. I still want the piece of Denver is what I'm saying. So if I'm taking out the D, I'm just going to say, screw it, they'll get there. Then you can get to Arizona D against Miami, who you said earlier. Miami D against Arizona, or Buffalo D against Seattle. All pretty good spots.
Let's do Buffalo D against Seattle.
All pretty good spots on the slate considered, because like you said, Geno outside, no DK Metcalf. Buffalo could be in a pretty good spot. If you wanted to go Miami against Arizona, it's possible. It's always there, but Arizona against Miami would be against the Tyreek chalk. But this is 2 points off the optimal original, and you got some secondary stacks in there that make sense. You still get a piece of the Denver game with Javonte, and you land on a D against a popular, probably like Bobo or JSN or something by the time that game gets there, or you're just not on it, so who cares?
What do you make of that game?
Buffalo, Seattle?
Yeah. Like, should we... One of these weeks, Josh Allen's going to win someone $1 million. It's like, it's going to happen. Hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
Because I have no idea who to put him with.
That's the problem. So he's, now he's actually $1,000 more, Patrick Mahomes, because that's really the topic of the conversation. I'm the never Mahomes guy, and I would still lean into this because it's a 13-game slate. I think it's a challenge to get him there. But really, Mahomes at one of his cheapest prices in a long time, a more condensed tree than ever. I mean, they just picked up a receiver, DeAndre Hopkins. What's his situation for Sunday, by the way?
He's going to play. I would imagine that his situation is going to be a lot like Murray's last week for the Bills. I played Murray last week. So they're going to try to actively get him a touchdown.
So he's 4,900.
Yeah.
And so I'm the never Mahomes guy for a reason. And this, I would still argue against it because this slate has 13 games on it. And there's just so much opportunity for other guys to get there. So many unknowns with that. But at least if you wanted to stack Mahomes this week, one, there's the PM only slate. I'll definitely be interested because any short slate, especially showdown, at least then it'd be more interested. Not on 13 games for me, but with 5, I can do it. Single game slate, showdown, I can do it. But I also feel like you can actually commit to Mahomes for once. Usually the challenge is there's too many other guys. If you just want to play him for him and Hopkins are going to hook up this week and get started on scoring together, let's go ahead with it. Let's try it. You could do that. Or if you just want to do him, Hopkins, and Kelsey and call it a day and just hope that's what it is. But one guy we didn't talk about enough on this thing is I still have interest in Hunt. He had 2 touchdowns early and should have probably had 3. He got stuffed at the 1 late. So I mean, just he's another guy that's in that range that if you're not playing Mahomes and all that other stuff, why not go to Hunt?
So there's a few games and a few players that we did this with. Like we basically didn't play any Lions in any of these lineups, and they're the biggest favorites on the slate at home.
That's why Gibbs is popular. I mean, we definitely hit on that.
But let's say if Gibbs is going to be popular, why not try, can you use Goff?
You could.
Because Jameson Williams is suspended. Dan Campbell said that Allen Robinson's going to play a ton and not Tim Patrick, which is weird.
Yes.
But I don't know if I want to go there.
So it's another tricky on a slate that there's some ones that we feel really, that just shows there's stuff we feel much better about. And I think that's always a good way to do it, especially on a large slate, is to pin it down to the games you want to be in on. But we'll see also too with the final ownership if Gibbs really does pick up steam because he's $100 more than Breece Hall. So any of those lineups with Breece that had money left over, that could be your pivot as well. Just say, forget trying to figure out these Jets, play Gibbs or play them both together.
Or do you like Montgomery at all? I know he got banged up last week, but he came back. He should be fine.
Yeah, he should be fine. Yeah, 6,400.
He's 64. So let's use Gibbs. So let's try this. Just try to throw in some players that we didn't use at all in these lineups to finish it off. Gibbs, Hunt, Gibbs, and who was the other one you just said?
Well, I think in this lineup, we can already switch to it, but we can just switch to a full new lineup. But who'd you say? Hunt, Gibbs?
Yeah, Hunt and Gibbs. Let's just start there with running backs.
Okay.
Could you use... Well, just screw it and just throw in Breece Hall into the flex. See what we're left with. You could use Drake May and Hunter Henry to save money with Breece Hall.
Yeah, let's try that. Drake May, 55. Hunter Henry, 38.
That gets us back up to 5,000 with a cheap defense. We're back up to 6,000. Then we're in that Javonte. I guess we can't use.
I guess one thing I'm noticing right now, automatic, is that Waddle has to be a good play this week.
Because it's just you don't land there.
He's in the dead zone that nobody's landing in. He's not too cheap. He's not the Tyreek price, who's cheap for who he is in his price, but Waddle just sort of lands there at 5,400. This guy could have 2 touchdowns. He's definitely fine. So now, one thing about if he does have 2 touchdowns, it's going to be very good for Tua. But if he just gets 10 for 105 and a touchdown, that's really solid and doesn't necessarily mean Tua had a big day. But Waddle fits in at 5,400 and keeps us in that balanced build. Even if you went to your Denver defense, who you like, and we're not playing clearly another spot, now you can start to pick if you want to stay in that range or go down and get someone you want from the 4K or the 3K range.
You can go Cedric Tillman at 33, Broncos D with Jalen Waddle and Drake London. You play Marvin Harrison if you wanted to.
Yeah, London might be the way.
Yeah, because we didn't get any line. We got basically 0 Falcons outside of Bijan in any of our lineups. Yeah, and I doubt that's...
Kareem Hunt goes to the flex because he's in the afternoon, and you've got Breece Hall, Jahmyr Gibbs, Kareem Hunt. You get the May, Henry, Hall mini stack there, the 2-1. And then you got a piece of Detroit. You got a piece of Denver. You got some of these big blowout spots via the defense with Denver and Gibbs with Detroit. You get your Tillman in for cheap instead of the cheap Tampa guys. I guess... no, because you can't do that, can you?
You could go from Tillman up to Bateman and then drop London down to a low 6 receiver, I think.
I was thinking more if you wanted a London with a Tampa Bay guy mini stack, you'd be able to drop Denver down to the Ravens D.
Sure.
And you can get there that way. And keep some more, if you wanted more correlation, you'd do that. What is the guy I was thinking of, McMillan, who's nobody playing, for example, or maybe they will by the time we get there, but if he's the guy or not, May, Henry, Breece Hall, you've got a secondary stack with McMillan, London. You're playing a piece of these other spots with Hunt for Kansas City, Waddle instead of Tyreek. You get more of that balanced build, but you do still have a $3,700 receiver. It's just hard to avoid.
I just drop him to Trey Palmer, save the $200, and then use Chiefs D with Kareem Hunt.
Does that work?
Yeah.
Even better. Kansas City this week is 3,600. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, prime example. So there's another good lineup that, still projects 2 off the original.
Yeah, the only guy that we're really, there's a lot of guys that obviously we're missing.
We don't have Denver in this one. Would be a topic.
There's no Denver and there's no Houston, like no Mixon, who everyone seems to be playing.
Yeah, what you got to think about when you're looking at it, but when we are you can only cover so many spots. And remember this too, on a 10-game slate, you're probably leaving a game behind. We had plenty of lineups where we could build. I wasn't here last week, but the week before we could build it and focus on 4 games. When there's 13 games, that means you're leaving 1 or 2 behind. In this case, we're leaving 2 or 3 behind because there's 13 games. So I think that just proves it that you can't play it all, but make your lineup make sense still, and that could be a way to climb up the board.
All right, that will do it on the Pat Mayo Experience. Code Mayo at Underdog right now. Get yourself in there with some free picks on Sunday, and I'll have all of the plays in the newsletter and on my show on Saturday as well. Hit a big banger last week, 20-1. Hit the Thursday Night Football one last night.
Yeah.
After losing all my money on the Vikings. Won it back on Underdog. That was great.
That's what you want to do.
Cooper Kupp's last catch got me there.
Last night?
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. You're probably tilted because of all the Puka stuff. Like, can I just get one of those over to Kupp? And then he gets that last catch, and it pans to Justin Jefferson on the bench, just in disarray, just in dismay. Just, couldn't handle it. Then he slammed his helmet later on, too.
The end of that.
Call at the end of the game is just nuts. I mean, we don't always go on these rants, but just real quick, that is insane. Imagine the end of a Super Bowl, and that's what happens. How is that not be able to be challenged and reviewed and anything?
You think just review, if they're doing like the eye in the sky thing this year already, and that's within 2 minutes, like I get that it's not written in, so you can't do it, but just change that.
They just have to change it.
Seems easy.
It's literally that easy. And if the guy was staring at him, it's not rigged. I get all that. Like, people complain so much. I get it, but it's like they just can't. As a fan, we can't have a game end like that. Forget the money aside and what I didn't bet on anyone last night. And my point is, like, it was nothing to do with that. The game can't end on that. Imagine a Super Bowl ending on that. It'd be brutal.
Indeed. All right. ShipItNation.com. You guys are live on Sunday morning?
Yep. Sunday morning, 9:45 a.m. Eastern. You can use code Mayo to get a discount over there as well. And all the sports fired up now, man. We've been crushing college football. Basketball is back. NHL, MMA, NASCAR, you name it. Even the World Series for the baseball playoffs. Just a ton of good stuff. PGA, the Zozo this week is going on. The no-cut event over there. Pretty good field, but interesting starts for some.
If you play well in Detroit, generally speaking, you're doing well in Japan right now.
There you go.
Got some Taylor Moore, some Ricky Fowler up near the
Rocket
top.
Mortgage Classic at the Zozo in Japan. But it looks like a good event. So monitoring that on the side this week as we got football at the forefront still.
I'll be back on Saturday with the full injury report, the rankings update. Then I'll release the full newsletter on Saturday evening. And of course, I'll be back with Cust and Garion after the late Saturday games live on Mayo Media Network at 7:15 p.m. Eastern Time. So you be there too. All right? I'll see you next time.
Mayo Experience! Experience!